First, the threat of 100% tariffs against Canadian goods to a high-stakes phone call between U.S. President Donald Trump and Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney follows Carney's highly successful Davos speech, and it's already sending signals about tariffs, tone, and Canada's room to maneuver. And Eddie, as usual, Trump and his talking heads had a different slant on the tone of the phone call. Can you believe that? I can't. Yeah. Actually, I can.
I can't either.
I was in the Oval with the president today. He spoke to Prime Minister Carney, who was very aggressively walking back some of the unfortunate remarks he made at Davos. And Sean, I'm not sure what the Prime Minister was thinking. Of course, Canada depends on the U.S. There's much more north-south trade than there could ever be east-west trade.
But to be absolutely clear, and I said this to the president, I meant what I said in Davos. It was clear, it was a broader set of issues, that Canada was the first country to understand the change in U.S. trade policy that he had initiated. And we're responding to that. We're responding positively by building partnerships abroad. We're responding positively by building at home. And we're prepared to respond positively by building that new relationship through CUSMA. He understood that, and it was a good conversation, as I say.
So you didn't walk back your comments?
No.
Back we go. My
There we go.
apologies, everyone.
Not, not a problem, Gary. And again, to our viewers, sorry about the technical difficulties. I was getting double talk in my ears, so really glad to be here, Gary. Absolutely. I was just completely flabbergasted by some of the comments that El Donald made, and then you have guys like Scott Bessent, who is not that much smarter than the El Presidente in a lot of issues, come out and make bold statements like that. And it's interesting how bold Scott Bessent gets when he's on right-wing media types, if you want to call it, in responding to what he perceives as what actually happened, what didn't happen. But you know what? Prime Minister Carney, in no uncertain terms, made it perfectly clear to the people who asked him questions about the comments coming in from Donald Trump and supposedly what was said on the conversation. He made it perfectly clear. No, I stand by my words in Davos. Point final, period. That's the end of it,
Yeah. And sure, Trump threatened us with 100% tariffs on anything not covered by CUSMA.
Indeed.
But so far, the threat, as a lot of his threats, has failed to materialize. And yes, it would have a real impact. but it's also going to have an impact on the Americans as well, as they're
Correct.
trying to buy things. So, Eddie, can you grab that and see if you can get it back? Because I just hit a button and now I can't stop it. It's
Sure.
out of control, Eddie. Our prompter is out of control. We can't keep track of our notes. Anyway, while you're doing that, I'm just going to flip over to some comments. And I knew that this was going to be somewhat of an experimental kind of show. And sure enough, okay, here we go. All right, so Deborah says, because we did ask, I did post a question asking what troubles you in the comments for our YouTube feed. And Deborah says, prices, giving Canadians a break on tax is nice, but we need our PM to stand up to the big grocery. Their profits tell a story of greed and unnecessary hardships for Canadians. And then Joe's here. And Joe says, there's nothing wrong with the audio. You sound like the Incredible Hulk.
He's talking about you, right? Gary, he's talking about you.
I don't think so. I don't think so. So, I don't know, Eddie, and we'll get into the grocery side of it in a minute. But overall, you've had a chance. You've been in an area now where you've been bumping into a lot of Canadians. Are they even talking about Carney and the speech and the fallout with Trump, or?
Yeah, no, I mean, in the building we're in Mazatlan here, I tell you quite honestly, we're running into a lot of Canadians here. And I'd say 90% of the people you run into are from Alberta. A couple of Quebecers, but mostly from Alberta. And in terms of the formalities of, hi, how are you? How are you enjoying your stay? Where are you from? Oh, I'm from Alberta. Oh, we're from Quebec. And sometimes they'll joke around and say, shh, let's not talk too loudly, kind of like on the side, right? Just alluding jokingly to the separatist drives in both provinces. But you know what? None of the conversation has actually moved into anything, Carney, to tell you the truth, or anything Canadian or anything American. It's just, I'm not going to say it's eerie. I just don't think I've had the opportunity to get to know people well enough during our introductions to be able to get into the political element. But where I'm here for a little bit at least, and I'm sure I'll end up having some sort of animated conversation with a fellow Canadian. I've just not had the opportunity yet.
So in other words, what I'm reading from that is that everybody's there just to be on vacation and forget about all of the foolishness going on in the outside world.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I mean, even myself and Manel wintering here for in Mexico, we typically don't raise any sort of issues that are going on worldwide. Amongst ourselves here, of course, we react to all the atrocities we've seen in the last 2 or 3 weeks in the United States as it relates to the ICE crackdown. Bothers us every day, but we kind of leave that in the confines of our apartment. And when we leave the apartment or turn off the television or shut off the phones, we typically try to stay away from any discussions that relates to the problems of the world. I'd say primarily the problems in the United States, let alone Canada. So no, we haven't heard people speak about what's going on, and we typically haven't brought it up yet. And again, we haven't been around a table having a few beers and drinks to even come to that kind of a conversation, but nobody's brought it up.
All right, Joel just popped in to let us know that he's getting distorted audio, but Monel says it's all good for her. So if you are having some audio issues, let us know. I'm trying to balance out the levels here just to make sure that whatever is going out is clean, and it's clean on our end anyway, from
So far,
what
yeah.
I can hear. And we're not peaking on any of the levels, so I'm not sure what's going on. I know that there was an issue with us connecting to Facebook. That's why I posted the YouTube feed on Facebook, is because the minute we hit start, Facebook came up with an error. So I'm not sure if somehow it's connected or if there's some weird thing going on in the background. But right now, on our end anyhow, And on your end as well, Eddie?
Yeah, I'm good here. I'm good here.
Okay, and Monel says she's good there too. So we're good here. But keep us posted, Joe, and if anyone else is experiencing any audio problems, by all means, let us know.
I was going to
Okay.
say, Joe, put your beer down.
Okay. All right. So Matthew comes in with Canada should be leaning or learning from the U.S. They have been doing better economically than Canada for years. Drop the anti-American nonsense and pay attention. I get what you're saying, Matthew. I tend to disagree that they are doing better economically than we are at the moment. As a matter of fact, as I was looking at some numbers in a newsletter I received that's US based this afternoon, and the numbers are trending downward from an economic standpoint. And it was only a matter of time before the tariffs started really taking effect and being noticed by consumers. And of course, you have a number of companies cutting jobs as well in the U.S. So, and again, a lot of that's tariff related because sales are softening. You know, look at Amazon today, laying off another 16,000 people. They've refused to say how many in Canada, but they're laying off 16,000 people. And the word was that they were going to close 2 retail ventures, which had not been producing any real results for them, and focus on one other retail venture as well. I haven't seen any official confirmation of that yet, but that was the speculation before the markets opened this morning. So, yes, the U.S. economy has been doing well in the past and even last year, but the tariffs were only really starting to be felt because if you remember, he had the April 2nd rollout of all of the tariffs, including the island that was only inhabited by penguins. And it took a while, and then he backed down, like he chickened out on some of them and claimed he had deals with other countries to offset the tariffs. But the tariffs now are really beginning to be felt because, the aluminum, for example. Who supplies the U.S. with the aluminum? Canada. There are 2 or 3 different areas in particular that he's hit coming in from Canada because, they don't need Canada, remember? They don't need us. So they're starting to feel the impact, and it is starting to show up in their economy now. And let's see, we have one more comment. Deborah says, Matthew, you're not paying attention, dude.
Well, you know what, too, Gary? I mean, yeah, Canada is feeling the burden of what's been going on economically in the world since the tariffs were declared by President Trump. Matthew, absolutely, we're certainly feeling it up here in Canada, but by no means is the United States not feeling some of the consequences as a result of these imposed tariffs that the United States put on Canada from the get-go. And they're also starting to feel the pressures of those said tariffs from most of the other G20, the economically strong countries around the world, as a result of all these tariffs. So, from the get-go, yeah, I get it. Countries didn't necessarily feel it, and I think with a lot of the economic experts around the world, they were all saying we're not going to feel it in the immediate, but as the year progresses into 2026, that's when the fallout should begin. And as Gary, you expressed earlier, we're just starting to see the reports coming in, or the reports that we're able to get in from the United States on what kind of an impact this is having on the United States. And again, we Canadians are also feeling that. And as time goes on, we're seeing the reports coming in globally, and from what we're seeing from the Trump administration, the numbers don't look very optimistic right now compared to where they were, let's say, 13 months ago, if you want to put it.
No, for sure. And Matthew has come back with, I just want to make sure I get the right one up here. Okay. First, Monel says, also considering they're not putting out real data, nobody knows what's going on in the U.S. The credibility factor of the White House definitely is in question. Really in question, and especially if you have really been watching closely the information coming from the Oval Office related to what's been happening in Minneapolis. Credibility pretty much shot, I would say. So let's go down here. And Matthew says, Canada's economy has been stagnant for a decade. Look at the per person decline versus America. Well, actually, our economy has performed decently as far as some of the G7 nations are concerned. And we had, under a conservative government with Stephen Harper back during the big crash back in 2008, 2009, which was U.S. based. And unfortunately, we felt the impact. So in Canada, through the guidance of Stephen Harper, we outperformed and we made it through that downturn, that major crash, relatively unscathed compared to the American economy and other G7 economies. So we've done okay. Have we set the world on fire? Definitely not. And really, when you look at the last decade and you consider who the Prime Minister was and what his priorities were or were not, explains a lot.
Yeah, and we talked about that quite honestly multiple times over the last 10 to 12 years, and how our country was not where it could have potentially been. But at the end of the day, still very strong in the G7. Even prior to Mr. Carney taking over, we were still pretty high up there. So it's a give and take. You can't compare the United States economic growth versus our economic growth. I mean, they've got 8 to 9 times more population than we do here. And considering we're a medium-sized country, relatively compared to the other G7 countries of equal size, we're on top of that whole pile. So, in comparing apples to apples, us in the United States, we're not an apples to apples comparison. If you equate ratios in there in terms of GDP potential, we're doing very well against a superpower like the United States. But that's not to take Matthew's comment not seriously and honestly. He's got some truth to this, but I think it's just fair to compare apples to apples here. Us, the United States, is apples to oranges. I'm sorry, but that's my opinion on that piece.
Yeah, and it's good to see Matthew. I don't remember Matthew commenting before. He may have last week or the week before, but
No,
it's
I
nice
think
to
it's
have
a
you
welcome.
on board.
It's a welcome.
And yeah, we appreciate your comments. Keep them coming, because you've stirred some discussion here, some reasonable discussion, and that's what it's all about. Okay, so Deborah comes back with, Canada exports over 20 million tons of potash to the U.S. We are number one supplier of crude oil. They rely on us for electricity, uranium, just to name a few. They do rely on us for a fair amount, for sure. Matthew argues, not political, just numbers. The income per person is significantly lower than the USA and peers, and GDP has only increased incrementally due to immigration. We did have an immigration problem, I'll give you that, for sure. Right. Yes, we're going to be lower than the US, I would suggest, as far as income per person, but are you converting the Canadian averages into USD or the USD into Canadian? If you're talking on the same currency, then okay. I'd like to look at the numbers on the same currency. And I would presume that you're quoting numbers that are in USD, even for the Canadian numbers. And if you can just clarify that for me, I would appreciate it. I can't remember. I would presume, Eddie, that when we're talking like getting into the G7 numbers and everything, that they would be going USD.
I think in
Would make
USD,
sense, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Not losing it?
No, you're not.
Okay. So, the other thing is, Carney today is meeting tonight, having dinner with, right. Let me just go right back to Matthew for a second because he clarified one point for me. And it was purchasing power parity. Okay, PPP. Gotcha. All right, understood. So Carney's meeting with the first ministers tonight. He actually managed to get David Eby and Danielle Smith together in his office for a meeting. And I loved Eby's comment. He said it was as friendly as it could be, or something along those lines. But the two of them, when sitting with Carney, they seem to be reaching some kind of a consensus, or at least they're coming on to the same page over the whole pipeline issue. And of course, with the pipeline issue comes the whole conversation around the tanker ban along the coast of BC. And again, I understand where he's coming from an environmental standpoint, but you have tankers that you have no control of just outside the 12-mile limit, flowing back and forth between Alaska and wherever they're filling up, whatever port, I would imagine, like, I don't know, San Francisco maybe? I don't know. But wherever the hub is, they're filling up and then coming right up along the coast to Alaska. And if one of those tankers breaks apart,
12 miles is not going to make much of a difference.
No.
Yeah.
And yes, the bitumen that they're talking about, if that escapes, there is no real cleanup per se, I guess. It's not great stuff to be dealing with. But how many tankers operating within Canadian waters have broken apart or have had major leaks in recent memory?
I'd be hard pressed to come up with one incident, Gary, to tell you the truth.
Right. Yeah, I can't either. I can't remember any. Now, that's not to say it's not going to happen, but everybody says shipping it by train is fairly safe as well. I took one event here in Quebec.
Right in my backyard here in Quebec.
Yep.
It was, completely obliterated and half an entire town. Like Megantic, they're still recovering from that travesty and tragedy, and there are still trains rolling through the middle of the town with all kinds of toxic material. So, you know what? All you need is one bad accident, and that's the end of that. And you're looking at British Columbia from an environmental disaster perspective. I get the Premier Iby's concern. So what is going to be the best alternative, most cost-effective one that's going to give you the least amount of that's going to give you the most amount environmental protection while not risking it too highly. So, you know what? Pick one or the other, Gary. You can have a disaster with train. You can have a disaster with a pipeline rupture, which doesn't happen very often, or you can have an Exxon Valdez right off the coast of British Columbia. Anything can happen. And usually when you're looking at cutbacks, people trying to make a buck at the expense of the environment, typically they'll do it. And what ends up happening is you have a disaster. So I get the British Columbian Premier Iby's concern. However, by the same token, you've got to take a look at what is best for for Canada? What is best for the province of Alberta? What's the best for the province of British Columbia? Because whatever that is, citizens like you and I and everybody else across the country can benefit from it. So it's just a question of finding the right balance, Gary, and then somebody making a decision, or a group of people making a decision. And the fact that three of them are actually sitting and having dinner tonight, I think that's progress in itself right there.
Very much so. And Matthew comes back and asks, are the LNG tankers included? Very good question, and I'm going to see if I can find the answer to that in the next couple of minutes, Matthew.
Right.
Because there has not been, just trying to think. Whenever they're talking about tankers in BC, it all seems to be centered around oil tankers.
Oil.
But
Right.
not LNG. But let me see if I can find out, double check on that. And I'll let you know for sure. For sure. Okay. Now, while we're at it, that was not the only thing that Trump, as in his usual fashion, managed to do last week. And this one really burns me big time.
Yeah.
Trump managed to insult NATO members, including Canada and our military, about our contributions to the Afghan war.
Yeah.
We've never needed them. We have never really asked anything of them. You know, they'll say they sent some troops to Afghanistan or this or that. And they did. They stayed a little back, a little off the front lines.
We were the first to invoke Article 5. We were the first to send support after 9/11 to New York City. We sent 40,000 Canadian troops serving over 13 years on the front lines in Afghanistan. In Kandahar, as one example, 158 of those soldiers paid the ultimate sacrifice. One of our diplomats paid the ultimate sacrifice. Thousands more were injured. 30 of our soldiers won the American Bronze Star for service in combat, for courage in combat. It's an extraordinary contribution for liberty, for freedom, for human rights, defending the United States, defending Canadian values. Everyone should recognize that. All Canadians are in their debt.
Did you notice, to me, watching him as he was wrapping up his comment, he seemed to be getting a little emotional.
Mm-hmm.
And as it trailed off and he went on to the next question, like he took a moment before he went to the next
himself.
question.
Yeah.
You know, when you quote those kind of statistics, and then I watched a couple of vets, Afghan vets, being interviewed by CTV and Global.
Mm-hmm.
And the one interviewed by CTV in particular, he was talking about some of his friends that they lost on the front lines, and that some of those soldiers died as a result of friendly fire from the Americans. Yep. A helicopter came in and apparently, he said, he decided not to be following the coordinates or whatever, and that's what happened. But the thing that we forget about is also the suffering that a lot of our military members go through after being in theaters like that and coming home, the mental suffering that they go through at home. And he said he has lost, I forget exactly how many friends who served with him since he's come home. Obviously suicide.
Yeah.
And PTSD. And then they focused in on this gash he had on the side of his head, like stitched and everything. And he was wounded over there. And as a result of it, he lost about 5 inches, he said, of his brain.
Yeah.
And he had to learn to read, and write, and speak all over again.
Yeah.
All over again.
Yeah, that was so hard to listen to him, his interview, the other storylines right across Canadian media. Gary, I know both you and I, we had such a broad range of emotions going through us when that was actually said and replayed and talked about on media channels across Canada. Hearing it across European media channels, yes, this is something that was broadcast around the planet. Those hurtful, stupid, ignorant comments made by the president of the former lead country in the world. It was just, I was angry. I believe you were angry as well. I was hurt. And in seeing Prime Minister Carney choke back a tear, like you said, before getting on to the next question, having to collect himself, that's how I felt. I you know what, that guy has done so many things to hurt people and hurt countries. Said ignorant things that we kind of say, oh, what an idiot. That was absolutely downright one of the most disrespectful things he has ever said on the world stage. It really just amplified the ignorance of him, the ignorance of his controlled state media in repeating that and justifying what he had actually said, when the history of the world completely destroys anything he had to say about the matter. Where, you have countries like Denmark. What was it? I think 44 or 45 soldiers died. They were one of the first soldiers there, along with the Canadians in Afghanistan. They had the highest per capita death toll of soldiers that served.
Yeah.
How
we were number 3.
We were number 3. How can you make a statement like that when you'll have a lot of American soldiers agree that the Canadians were right there with us, side by side, fighting the same battles? For him to come out and make a statement like that, you know what? Absolutely out there in left field. It just completely clarified to the rest of the world what an immoral, ignorant, selfish, immoral human being this guy is. That was just the worst thing I could have heard as a Canadian. And you know what? I feel so bad for the men and women around the world who served and took up arms on behalf of the United States after the atrocity of what was 9/11. It's just, and he didn't pull it back. And you have his stooges in cabinet who didn't make any corrections or not even say, well, the president was speaking metaphorically or whatever the hell. It's just absolute bull crap. And you know what? And seeing Fox News, oh, Trump is just being Trump. No, he's not being Trump. He's just an absolute idiot. And you're idiots to support that kind of a statement. And I'm not talking about economy. I'm not talking about anything else. These are soldiers that sacrifice their lives in the service of their country and in the service of what they believe is freedom. And they were there for the United States of America. And I'm sorry I'm going on. For him to say that, it just makes me absolutely sick, Gary.
Well, I'm remaining relatively silent on this because what I have to say I probably should not say live. And the anger I felt when I heard that, and and even Matthew was saying, well, Trump doing Trump stuff, if we let it bother us, he wins. For the most part, yes. But when you disrespect people and families who gave their lives or came back wounded and their family has been torn apart just trying to deal with the wounds, whether mental, physical, both. It's totally, there are no words for it, and you can't let that go. You just can't let that go. From a guy who managed to dodge the draft back in the 60s because of bone spurs, and he's out shooting his mouth off like that.
Yeah.
You know he doesn't know a whole lot, but he just brought it down another level. The disrespect.
Yeah.
And the other part of it was, you heard the Prime Minister say Canada was the one who invoked Article 5 of NATO to get things rolling, to go into Afghanistan and go after, the terrorists and try and clean up the mess. In the meantime, there were a number of volunteers from various first responder agencies across this country who jumped into a car and headed to New York City to Ground Zero to help with the search and attempt at rescue and combing through the rubble to do whatever they could to help. I happen to know one individual personally who, he was gone just like that, boom, down where he went. And and then to have that sort of crap thrown up like that, so dismissive. And he doesn't even realize how stupid he sounded in making that statement. I just...
He said it with absolute confidence and conviction. That's what kills me. He doesn't realize exactly what you said, how stupid that was. And Gary, I mean, I saw something today that I mentioned to you. I don't know if it was a meme or a statement by a senior representative in the United States, something about, he's speaking about the other countries being just a little bit behind the front lines in Afghanistan. How would President Bone Spurs know if he hasn't got any closer to Vietnam than Central Park, which is literally the truth? How would he be able to appreciate any of this if the closest he got to Vietnam was Central Park during those days, like during the Vietnam War? I don't know. I don't even know what to call him anymore, Gary. Just like you, I don't want to say anything on the show that I'll later regret. But yeah, I think I get your message and you get my message.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's go back and catch up here. Matthew asked if LNG tankers were included in the tanker ban on the BC coast. No, they are not.
They're not.
The legislation is officially known as the Oil Tanker Moratorium Act, Bill C-48, and it targets crude oil and persistent oils, heavy oils that linger in the environment like bitumen and fuel oil. So what's banned? Vessels carrying more than 12,500 metric tons of crude or persistent oil as cargo. What is not banned? The Act explicitly allows for the movement of LNG, liquefied natural gas, propane, jet fuel, gasoline, and naphtha. These are considered non-persistent because they evaporate or dissipate quickly if spilled.
Right.
And that's why too, if a plane has to dump fuel, they don't dump fuel until they reach at least 5. They usually call ATC and get clearance to 5,000 feet. Yeah. And around the 5,000 foot mark, it never makes it work.
It'll just evaporate, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so now that's that. Let's just keep rolling here because we do have a few to pick up. Monel says, Matthew, I'm sorry, but that's enough of the Trump being Trump excuse. This needs to stop. Matthew says, it's a positive statement. Don't let him rile us up and pin us against each other. Then Monel comes back with, that I can agree with, Matthew. Thank you for clarifying. Matthew comes back with, Trump is not our leader. There is nothing we can do about what he says or does. This does hit deep, but what can we do is take care of our side of the street.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Monel says, say it, I can say it for both of you. He's disgusting and he's a buffoon. She's in our minds. God knows like what she's going to find in my head.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I think the Prime Minister's response to the reporter's question for his reaction to that comment by Trump was extremely diplomatic, extremely informative and educational. And, you know, here's the other side of it. If you don't think it didn't hit home, think back to the days of the Highway of Heroes.
Mm-hmm.
And each time a coffin or coffins came home.
The Trenton Air Force Base, yeah, the bridge.
And the turnout along the way. I was watching some video of that the other day on YouTube, and I just get emotional.
Yeah.
Even some Americans were very much taken back and surprised by the Highway of Heroes and how people turned out. Mm-hmm. And you had the procession straight down the highway.
Yeah.
Everything came to a halt. Anyway, I think we'll wrap that segment up and move along to, where am I here? I have to find my camera. There we go. So up next, a tale of grocery cost relief. First, though, I want to tell you about Ecamm Live, the software I use to stream Night Talk Canada, as well as recording work for clients. It's a TV production studio on your Mac computer, giving you a wide variety of creative options for YouTube and social media platforms. Now, you can get more information and a 14-day free trial of the Pro offering, so that means everything. And they've just launched a new beta, which has a number of new features, including being able to stream both in vertical and horizontal modes at the same time to different, if your computer can handle it, to different destinations. So you can scan the QR code here on the screen, and there is an affiliate link in the description below.
And Gary, the federal government is rolling out a grocery assistance program as affordability pressures persist.
This will deliver hundreds of dollars more into the bank accounts of more than 12 million Canadians. Starting this year, we're taking the existing GST credit amount and raising it by 25% for 5 years. And in addition, we're providing a one-time payment equivalent to 50% of the GST credit this year. Right now, a family of 4 receives about $1,100 a year with the existing.
Okay, wow. That was bizarre.
Well, anyway, Gary, there are questions that still remain about the impact and timing and the expectations of what Prime Minister Carney is looking at rolling out, right?
That's for sure. And you know, you listen to the way he presented it. What it is, like, it's taking the GST rebate and renaming it.
Yeah. Gary, I'm missing you on the screen, bud.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
It's taking the GST and renaming it, and adding a 25 over the next 5 years, upping it by 25%,
Right.
and also a one-time 25% payment. So, there's some new money involved, and he's saying that it's going to help a family of four.
Right.
Yeah, and that's great, and even like a single person, but you're still only in one group or two groups. Those who qualified for the GST rebates will qualify for this. It's not expanded in any way to help others who may be feeling the pressure. On either end, you may have some people who are just over what the higher level of salary is, but they're having a hard time as well.
Yeah.
They're in a slightly higher income bracket, so they're probably up over into the next tax bracket as well, which is grabbing more money from them, and so they're having just as hard a time. And on the other end of it, there is nothing like for a lot of seniors who are really having a tough time making ends meet.
Yeah.
So
You know what, Gary? I mean, there's always some sort of an expectation that all Canadians have of any kind of a program that the government does roll out. Okay, fine. Prime Minister Carney did roll something out where he renamed it and threw some extra buck in it. You know what? Number one, at this particular point in time, anything extra is a good thing. Does it go far enough? Hell no, not at all. But then again, I think any of us, and I'll ask you this question, Gary, I mean, from an expectation perspective, I think we'd be hard pressed to identify, well, what would I, as a Canadian citizen, like to see in terms of help from the federal government in terms of the cost of groceries? And it's different for everyone. Is it extra money in your pocket at the end of the day? I think there's a good portion of that's included in here. What about being able to afford the groceries with the money I have? Well, the problem with that is we, unfortunately, not fortunately or unfortunately, just the way the world works, we're a capitalist country. We're not talking about American capitalism, but we are a capitalist country. And unless a government can put a moratorium or a capper on business entities on how much money they can actually make as a profit, they're going to keep on raising prices, Gary, whether there's a supply chain issue or not, because they can. So, what does a government do? Now they're going to be expected to regulate grocery prices so citizens can afford it. And then you take the next step into that and you say, well, doesn't that kind of speak about a government going beyond social programs, where you're starting to getting into communist programs, if you want to call it? I mean, I'm just speaking very loosely here. So where do we as Canadians or the majority of Canadians can actually say, the government is actually doing something for me where I can actually afford groceries? And what is that? Those are some huge questions for our politicians to face. And you know what? Whether it's a question towards Prime Minister Carney, thank you for what you're doing. I appreciate that. But it's got to go further. No question about it. And he's going to say, well, Mr. Eddie, citizen of Canada all his entire life, what would you like to see me do? And these are questions that you and I are asking as citizens. These are questions that people that are just barely over the poverty line and below the poverty line, these are things that they're dealing with every day. And you know what? What about the opposition, whether it's Poilievre of the Conservatives or whoever's in charge of the NDP these days? Okay, those are questions they should be asking during question period. What I'd like to hear from them, as opposed to asking a question, is how they would overcome this, and maybe share that with whoever's in charge so you can actually get the damn job done. So it comes down to, what are our expectations as Canadians? Very simply put, I want to be able to feed my family. I can't do that with the money I'm making right now, and the prices are just skyrocketing beyond anything I can afford. Well, which one of those can the government control? I guess comes the question to be begged, right?
For sure. And you're right. It's not government's position to be involved in business directly. The ideal situation is for government to create an environment that business can thrive. And that does not necessarily mean just straight government handouts the way that money has been handed out to, like EV battery plants that never had a shovel in the ground at all, and others, those are not that's not how government should be encouraging business. It comes back to taxation levels, and it's the same for the average person on the street. The taxation levels have gone crazy. And yes, people's expectations of government at all levels also have gone crazy. And there has to be some kind of a reckoning. We have to stand back, take a deep breath, give our heads a shake and say, right, we have become really a society that now depends on government to do basically a lot of our thinking for us. Mm-hmm. And in exchange, we're paying a pretty hefty toll for that. We've got bureaucracies that have ballooned beyond any reasonable level. We have money that's being spent on things without any real accountability, including health care, and things like I say, like look at the EV battery plant here in Quebec that they never broke ground on it, and the Quebec government lost millions on it. Mm-hmm. So there has to be a mindset change somewhere along the way. However, in the meantime, governments also can step in extenuating circumstances and offer a handout, like a hand up to help to a degree. But I think the biggest thing that would help Canadians, and it's not going to happen anytime soon at any level of government, we need to establish some kind of a flat tax rate, period. Mm-hmm. One that's easily understood by the average person on the street when you're doing your income tax or whatever. Look at what we're paying in GST and then provincial tax here in Quebec. You look at various taxes on all sorts of things, and it has to stop. The taxpayers only have so much money in their pockets, and they're being squeezed more. But also, taxpayers have to take the responsibility of not expecting and demanding so much from government. We've gone way too far with that expectation.
Right.
And
which
you've
is the point I
allowed
was making at the beginning.
Yeah, we've allowed government to really come into our homes and oversee pretty much everything we're doing, and it has to stop. It really has to stop. But it's going to take a generation to change that whole mindset. Mm-hmm. But I really believe somewhere along the way that we need to, as levels of government, stay away from investing large sums of money, offer some tax incentives or incentives like that. That's fine. But that's it. You're not buying in as a shareholder. You're not paying for the land. You're not doing this. You're offering a tax incentive,
Correct.
which is what a lot of states do in the U.S. It's just tax incentives. That's it. In some areas, there may be some under the table dealing, but that's a fact of life as well. But for the average person on the street, a flat tax. Boom.
Yeah.
No more sales tax. No more consumption tax of any kind. It's just a flat tax rate. Boom. At the federal level, provincial level, and at the municipal level.
Yeah, and we can certainly use that in Quebec. I mean, Quebec is the highest taxed state or province in all of the Americas. So, what you're saying right there, Gary, would make sense to a lot of Quebecers and a lot of people right across the country. It makes it very easy in terms of being able to budget yourself, being able to understand what you can expect if you qualify for the assistance programs that the governments might give you. It makes perfect sense. But you're right. This is something that's going to it's a generational thing. And the fact of the matter is, if it's a generational thing, maybe not your vote or my vote, but maybe the vote of our children, to be able to support a government that would want to actually do something like this, while businesses would agree with it as well, moving down the line. So you and I might not see something like this, but our kids genuinely could do something about that. But then you'd need to have the leadership being a willing party to actually come up with a flat tax system. And I think that there politically is probably the biggest quote unquote trump card in this entire exercise. Not an easy thing, because it doesn't matter what party comes up with the idea, whoever's in power, the opposition will try to slander it and knock it down. It's just the way our political system works here, unfortunately, where bipartisan work, we've seen that gone out the window the last 10, 12 years. The level of bipartisan work across the floor just hasn't been there, and it's still continuing today, even though we should be working, all political parties should be working with each other for the benefit of Canada, as opposed to benefit of the party or the individual. So, well, I hope to see some of these changes as you're suggesting here, Gary, in my lifetime, in your lifetime, but only time will tell. And for the time being, any little bit helps, even though it's not being distributed properly, as you alluded to. Any little bit right now does help. Is $2,000 going to make a big difference for a family? I really can't say one way or the other. It'd be nice if that was $8,000 for a family that actually needed it. Myself as a taxpayer, if it's helping a family afford that can barely eat, you know what? Okay, I'd rather go to that as opposed to some company who cut down all the trees in Quebec for I don't know how many square kilometers, and it's just an open hole right now, and we spent all that money for nothing. To me, that's a waste of taxpayer money.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I think we have a few more comments. Yeah, Matthew's been busy. Let's go. Let's see now. Here we go. He started off with another round of vote buying. Yay, more debt. Then he follows that up with, seniors and low-income people. I wonder who most of these people vote for. Ooh. Sorry, I didn't get to that before he had to go. Capitalism requires investment capital, not government handouts.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's where you and I were headed, Eddie, I guess. Well put. We're in it deep. That was to one of the comments. And I'm glad I discovered you guys. Good commentary. Have a great evening. Thanks for keeping things civil.
Well, thank you,
Matthew, if you're watching later on to see how things turned out, thank you for joining and jumping into the conversation and putting some food for thought within the comment section.
It's exactly what we like.
Yeah. So that was good to see. Anyway, grocery program relief or rebranding. Well, it's going to be a little bit of relief for some people, and the Prime Minister admits they get an $800 check in their hand, they can spend it on whatever, not necessarily groceries. Maybe it'll come in handy for back to school stuff. I don't know, but
Right.
yeah. So it's relief in one way. It's being called the Grocery Assistance Program, but it's really just rebranding of the GST and the fact that they are adding, they're going to be increasing what anyone who qualifies for it will be getting back over the next 5 years. So
Right.
there's that aspect of it. Now also, in what happened, and I don't know what happened to that clip because it played perfectly 3 times this afternoon.
Murphy's
Anyway,
Law.
yeah, it's like the gremlins are on the loose in here tonight. Anyhow, what I was going to say was there's a multi-million-dollar package to encourage companies in the supply chain, the food supply chain, to make improvements to make sure our supply chain is sustainable and can deliver the goods as
Yeah,
required.
$500 million.
Yeah. Building things like, did you say 500 million?
500 million, yeah, from
Yeah.
the Strategic
Yeah.
Response Fund to help food businesses absorb supply chain costs. Yeah.
Right. And he also said he was hoping that it would promote perhaps like more greenhouses and facilities like that. And, I think even though I think it was Cucumber Farm over in Newfoundland many years ago failed when they were trying to grow them in the greenhouse and the lights from the place.
Yeah.
There was a small, I think it might have been on the outskirts of Mount Pearl, which is just outside of St. John's. And people for miles around were complaining about the light at night. It was so bright. Anyway, it failed. It was an idea before its time, but there's no reason why we don't have facilities now strategically placed across the country growing everything. Even citrus fruits that normally we'd be importing from the U.S. through the winter.
True. True.
We should be able to grow in-house here and distribute.
When you look at the Okanagan Valley and you look at the Niagara area, I mean, there used to be canneries in that region, cherries, peach, whatever you want, apricots, plums, everything was grown there, and most of these farms were converted to grapes, wineries, and chateaus making wine. They shut down their cannery plants out there. So you know what? We do have the geography and the environment in some places in Canada to do this 12 months out of the year. And when you can't do it 12 months out of the year, Gary, you and I have said it many times in our program and our many shows. We are leaders in innovation. We've done things here in this country that no other country even thought of trying. Other countries look at what we've accomplished in our history, and we're actually in envy to these countries, and they praise us for that. We can come up with all kinds of wonderful solutions, and if we can actually grow our own produce here 12 months a year and be able to use that and leverage that to helping to feed our economy and helping to feed our population, why not? Those are the kinds of programs I'd like to see my tax money go into.
Yes.
Right?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Totally. I'm in 100% agreement with you, Eddie. We're definitely on the same page for sure. Okay, so take it away.
All right. So still to come, Canadians and our quirky toughness. And before we get to that, we hope you're enjoying tonight's stream. And if you would like to show your support, yes, you can buy us a coffee. Gary loves coffee. Simply click on the QR code or click on the link description below. Gary and I really appreciate all your support.
And we do. Thank you so much for that. All right. Tonight, let's take a step back from the headlines and let's talk about something Canadians almost never brag about.
And leaves other nationalities in complete awe how quietly tough we actually are.
No slogans, no chest thumping, just everyday resilience. And so let's look at some of the things that perhaps other people notice what we're doing or not doing with it, and have some fun with it as well.
Yeah.
Let me just bring up my points here. Where did they go? Get rid of that. I've got so much stuff on the go here already. There we go. Okay, so there are a couple of things that come to mind right away, and why it stands out to me is there's a guy I watch on YouTube from time to time, and he goes by the name of Tyler Bucket, and he does reaction videos.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been doing reaction videos to different things Canadian. As a matter of fact, all things Canadian. Right down to some people sent him some of our chips and candies and things that they don't have in the States for him to try. And he did it while videoing and did the video on it. It was actually quite funny to watch. But what he's learning, and he's had a couple of these on, every winter, and when we have a polar vortex, what do we see? We see videos on Instagram in particular and TikTok of Canadians in the middle of a blizzard in a pair of sneakers, in gym shorts and a t-shirt walking down
behind
the street.
Or even worse, walking behind a snow thrower.
Yeah, exactly. So, we take weather as routine, like we don't prepare for winter. Well, some may do it, but we don't prepare. We plan our lives around it, maybe, I guess, would be the best way of looking at it. All I think about is, okay, it's about that time to go downstairs and drag out the winter clothing. And then I try and put off wearing it as long as I can.
Right.
And then all of a sudden that one day comes along and you're stuck with it. It seems like for 6 months.
Yeah, I
long.
made that mistake where I refuse to wear boots. Even if it's snowing a little, I wear my sneakers. No, I refuse it. It's winter. And then one day you're in some place when you come out, you got a foot of snow in no time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, even, and it's true, there have been news stories on this latest outbreak of the polar vortex.
Right.
But it's not overtaking things. And, minus 30 really isn't a crisis.
Mm-hmm.
It's a commuter dropping the kids off at school, normal work day, you get on. And as much as I detest winter, I've been out at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night in the minus 20 some odd, feeling like minus 30 some odd, with the little guy doing his final before bedtime. And yeah, it's been, but I'm getting climatized.
Well, you know what, Gary? I am sure that during your days in broadcast journalism, when you were actually out there getting that story, I am sure you froze to the ground at some point in your career at 3 o'clock in the morning getting that story, no?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, though, it used to be kind of a fun thing if we had a major storm, especially on a weekend, and a bunch of us would come in and we'd start doing the storm reports and being out in the snow and finding somebody coming out of a restaurant at the hotel with a pie that they bought from the restaurant, kind of thing, because they were craving pie and they were going to
Right.
be they were just going far enough to get the pie, and then they're going to spend the rest of the day munching on the pie and watching TV, and forgetting about the blizzard outside. But there were a lot of times like that, yeah, Eddie. And there was one morning I had a 4x4 Ford Explorer, or a Ford Escape, sorry. And because I was the one with the 4x4, all of a sudden I get a call from our morning personality on our FM station. Can you come over and pick me up? Over I go. I forgot that he lived down in a valley. Going down was okay. I had it in
Right.
four-wheel drive. And you know what? Coming back, like, that Escape just plowed through it, and I hit 2 snow drifts, and then at the top of his street, the plow had been by on the main street and just blocked it in, was solid, and I went flying
wow.
through. But those are the sorts of things, you just look at it and say, okay, let's have some fun. I've
Yeah.
got a 4x4, let's do it, let's have some fun.
Yeah.
And
Well,
we don't think twice about it.
Well, Gary,
Now,
just in our neighborhood, for example, just to finish off on the winter piece, I mean, what a story. We live in a park called Griffintown, which is just south of downtown Montreal, right? Now,
right.
ladies and gentlemen, we can have a snowstorm of, we're talking about 60 centimeters of snow, 40 centimeters of snow. Gary and I will walk out of our respective buildings. We used to live in the same building. We'll walk out of the building. The sidewalk has got 2 feet of snow. The street, the road has a foot of snow, but the bike paths are plowed. So for that one bicycle that might come by in the next 24 hours, that bicycle path is clean, while
Yeah.
Gary and I are walking neck deep to cross the street, right? I think that was a thing when we first met that you just could not get your head around.
I know, it was. It was. Now, speaking of winter, and as someone who can handle the winter, as you say, swing your camera around and show us your view.
Okay. Okay. So this is my view right now.
Oh, yeah, look at the snow. Ah,
Look at this. I'm sorry, Gary. You made me do that. I was going to ask you, how was the weather back home? And I didn't want to do that because then I would have turned the. Okay, you know what, ladies and gentlemen, that's Gary's fault. I didn't want to do that.
It's a beautiful view, though. It really is a beautiful
it
view
is.
that you have there. Yeah.
Manel has been
So-
out here taking pictures of the sunset, so we're very fortunate where we ended up.
Yeah. And it's warm there, too.
It is. It's very comfortable. Yeah. What is it? What is it back home? Minus 20 or a little bit below that?
Actually, let's see now. What is it? Let me double check. Oh my God, we're in a heat wave. Are you ready for this?
What do you got?
It's minus 11, feeling like minus 15.
Oh man. Okay. You better take your dog out before it gets colder.
He's curled up in a ball in his nest beside me. I was earlier. He was snoring, and I thought, I wonder if anybody's going to hear the snoring on the mic.
Yeah.
So, anyway, let's see now. We do have a comment. Nell's going to weigh in here with. There we go. Hey, I saw a recent picture of Griffintown, Gary. You can tell me if this is true. They actually did the sidewalks. Super excited. Actually, yeah, the sidewalks have been done on a regular basis because it's been snowing, it seems, almost 2 weeks straight. Even yesterday, the sun was breaking through the clouds, but there was still a very, very fine light snow falling. And it fell all day, all last night. This morning I got up and I could still see that it was coming down, very, very light. So it's building up, building up, building up. But you don't notice it as much now. It's kind of sneaking around that way.
Yeah. Well, that's just a sign for you. That's just a sign for you to take your dog on the bike path to relieve himself. It's clean. You won't slip. That's a perfect place.
Yeah. We have another comment. I'll get to that in just a minute. So I want to hit one other thing here. How would you define a short drive, Eddie?
How would I define a short drive?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I mean, are we talking city, or are we talking just taking a drive?
Just taking a drive.
I don't know. I mean, Ottawa is an hour and a half away from me, so I call that a short drive.
An hour and a half.
For me,
Okay. Yeah.
for me, you know what? It's a road trip. I mean, anything about an hour, I'd say is a nice road trip. I don't like getting stuck in traffic, but if I can drive, an hour and a half is easy.
Yeah. What about maybe a 6-hour drive?
Yeah, my wife is not really a fan of taking long drives, but we'll do it once in a while. No, you know what? 6-hour drive, no big deal. Stop at Tim Hortons in between somewhere, grab a coffee, and continue going. So yeah, I wouldn't be reluctant in doing that. I wouldn't consider
Especially if
that.
it's a
I wouldn't call that a long drive.
yeah,
It's a drive.
yeah. Especially if it's a divided highway. You just put cruise
Yeah,
on and away you go. The
and
car
away you
pretty
go.
much steers itself. Yeah. So
True.
it's funny because when you think about it, and this point was raised earlier when I was doing some research,
Right.
and a lot of times when we're talking about traveling or driving in particular, we talk about it in hours, not in kilometers. We talk about it in hours.
Yeah. How
And
far is it? About an hour away, hour and a half. You're right.
yeah,
You're right.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, I'm going to Halifax. Well, how long is it going to take? Well, from St. John, it's about a 4.5-hour drive now. You know, depending if you see a few Mounties around, you may slow down a bit and adds to it, but it's about a 4-hour drive. What's 4 hours? Yeah. But don't ask me how far it is in kilometers. I have no idea.
Myself personally, when we go visit my mother-in-law at her home, how far is it? Oh, it's going to take us about half an hour to get there. Maybe somebody's going to say, well, how many kilometers is that? And probably only then I'll kind of take a look and see how many kilometers that actually is, right? So you're right. It's I don't think about it very often, but usually I'll just say half an hour, 15 minutes, depending on the time of the day, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Even, driving from where I lived in New Brunswick to here in Montreal. Never talked about it in kilometers. It was always how long it took.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and
How,
even,
how,
go ahead.
how far does it take me to walk to Gary's house? Well, the amount of time it takes me to drink half a glass of scotch, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah,
See, that's
exactly.
something you and I can relate to from time to time, right?
Absolutely. No question about it. So, it's funny. When you look at us in the winter and you see the pictures of things and, people out ice fishing and they're and some of those ice fishing shacks
Yeah, people are flabbergasted by, you do what in the winter? You ice
yeah,
fish? Yeah, I've done it. I mean, it's been a
yeah,
while, but I mean, I
and
had the whole shebang. I had the drill. I would rent a cabin, and we would fish all day. Bring the
yeah,
sausages, the beans, the wood, and just have a great day. Ice fish, yes, we ice fish.
yeah. And as cold as it's been here in the east, I've noticed people I know on Facebook talking about going out snowmobiling. They're gone all day on the trails, you know. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
so, yeah,
But you know
I
what,
guess
Gary? Especially, I mean, I know a lot of people around the world from my travels. I know a lot of guys in the United States, especially in the Southern Belt. And, sometimes we get together for a meeting or a beer after work, and they would
hmm
ask me the genuine questions. You guys really drill holes in the ice and fish? I said, yeah, very much so, like your northern states in New York or Michigan or Minnesota. This is something we all do up there, and it's normal. Do we like the cold? No. How do we prepare for it? We're smart about it. We dress appropriately. It's as simple as that, you know. Except for the few guys that you and I have actually seen on media recently, you know, a blistering snowstorm, and the guy's out with a heavy parka in shorts and some running shoes, and he's pushing his snow thrower. That's just Canadian toughness, and that's how we've grown up with winter here in Canada. It's not something that we say, oh, we're nuts or anything like that. We're just Canadian. It's part of our 4-season country. Most of our country experiences 4 seasons. We dress accordingly, and we have learned to live with it. Very simply put.
Well, I remember there was one year, I think it was around 2017 maybe. We had 4 major blizzards, and I mean blizzards, in a row, like each weekend. In I think it was in February, or like around the end of January into February. Anyhow,
Right.
like the city was just at a standstill, and we have a lot of narrow streets, much like Montreal in the older sections of the city here. And it was just choked with snow. Long story short, a lot of the snow, to get it out of the way quickly and get the trucks back so that they could load them up again and get as much done as possible in as short a span of time as possible. They got permission from the port you couldn't dump it straight into the water, into the harbor, because of environmental concerns. So they got permission from the port to one dock, which was not in use. It was used on 3 ship days during cruise season, but they weren't having any cruise ship days or 3 ship days until sometime in August. Anyway, they kept just piling it. And I was volunteering in the police museum, and we had a cruise ship come in one day, and there was still a huge mound of snow on the wharf, and you could see it from anywhere in the city center, including the cruise ships, which dock right in the city center. And some of the tourists coming in, and they're like, do you get snow like that all year round? You have it all year round? And you'd have to explain to them like what was going on. And of course, there's a lot of sand and everything mixed in with it. So the sand was slowing things down as far as the melt was concerned. But they were just amazed. Totally amazed as to what was going on with that. So anyway, now, just before we started that segment, had a couple of comments come in. They're off topic for this week, but they're related to what we've been talking about over the last 2 weeks and what we'll be talking about again next week to a degree. So I thought I'd just put them up. The person took time to come in, and it'll show you what's going on here. Okay, it's Henry, and he says, please, provinces can work together without a federal den of thieves in Ottawa stealing your family's future. And Alberta wants freedom. So that goes back to, of course, the separation movement that's underway in Alberta right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then he comes back with, Alberta has been treated like a prostitute by the federal den of thieves in Ottawa, stealing your family's future. So Alberta wants freedom. All right. So again, that is the degree of passion, if you will, that's involved with the side that is pushing to get a referendum on separation. And we'll have a little more to say about that next week, I think, if everything comes together with a guest that I'm working on. So now let's go back to what else says. If Eddie were to tell me, honey, it's going to be about 200 kilometers, I'd be like, yeah, that's not the answer when my son was young. We would count the distance by TV shows.
That's true.
Wow. TV shows. Okay. Never thought of that. Never thought of that at all. And I think that's a good way to end it. TV shows. Alrighty.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll put a wrap on episode 68 this weekend. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre faces a leadership review. We will have discussion about the outcome and its impact on the national political scene next week.
And remember to like, share, subscribe on YouTube, and follow on Facebook. You can also find us on YouTube Shorts, Facebook, and Instagram Reels as well. And yes, on TikTok as well.
Yeah. Imagine TikTok.
Yeah, TikTok. Yeah. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. I'm Eddie Tkallik. Good night.
Night Talk Canada returns in 7 days. I'm Gary MacDonald. Good night.